Hey Dreamers, I'm Joe Pardo, and my guest today is making her dreams come true by paying podcasters for their passion. Now, I'm a podcaster. I don't think it's any secret at this point, 3 years in.
Let's hope not, since this is your podcast, eh?
Well, it's a not a very good kept secret if it is. I can't say enough good things about the guest I have on today. I'm super, super, super proud of everything that she's been able to accomplish, and the way that she handles life is it makes my heart sing to hear the realness of the fact that, life isn't pretty and it's very complicated. Because we were just talking, we had a long conversation right before this, and the honesty that comes out from this person is it means a lot to me in this world, that there are people that get it, that honesty is more important than beauty. And Dreamers, without any further ado, I'd like to welcome to the show Jessica Kupferman.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. That was really sweet of you too. Thank you for saying that. It's really nice.
You're very welcome. Yeah, I try to give what I can in these intros. Sometimes I can give more than others depending on who the guest is. I will say that I should have had you on the show a long freaking time ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things where you just don't think of it, I guess. Busy and whatever.
Yeah, but I have had you on the MapCon podcast, which you should go and listen to that interview because it was great, especially if you're a podcaster or want to get into podcasting. Anyway, Jessica, why don't you get started? I mean, we've already been talking for 37 minutes, but why don't
is it awkward to introduce me after we've been talking like 40 minutes? That's a little awkward. It's funny to hear you do it. You're like, yeah, we're in the middle of a convo. Hi, everyone.
Yes, and Jessica, why don't you start by giving some background about yourself, and then we can go from there and get back into our conversation a little bit.
That's fine. So how far back should I go from podcasting, or like? How far back should we go here?
Let's talk about how you got to podcasting.
Career trajectory. Okay. Actually, Joe, that starts when I was about 4 years old, believe it or not. So,
me too. How about that?
Does it?
Those tape recorders. Yeah. I wish I could have those tapes back.
The tape recorders. But actually, my mother really shoved me into dance class like at age 3 or 4. And I was taking tap, jazz, and ballet. On stage, and it never occurred to me to be nervous or scared, and I think that's actually a good thing for you to do to your kids, is like give them some kind of activity where they're going to perform early, because then they have no concept of why that would be scary, whereas later you do. Anyway, so I've been on stage like my whole life, basically, a cappella and theater and all these things, and then I graduated from college with a communications degree, started out in ad sales, digital advertising for magazines and newspapers, this and that. And then my mother passed away in 2005. And I really don't enjoy sales, or at least I wasn't at the time. I felt like I didn't like when it got mathy and you had to do like, well, if you call 100 people, at least 20 will say yes. Like that annoyed, like all the aspects of having, I think, a sales manager were terrible, and I hated it. And so I had been thinking about quitting and becoming a graphic designer, which I know you are as well. And my mom passed away at age 55 from cancer. And at the time I felt like I was 30, and I felt like, God, if I'm only going to live 25 more years, I'm definitely not spending it selling these ads for people anymore. I'm freaking out of here. So I actually drove home from her funeral and quit my job, took all my stuff out of my office and just went home and said, I'm starting my own business. I had been researching design, freelancing, teaching myself for about 2 years up until that point. It was just, I guess I needed a catalyst to get going. So I quit. My husband said, you're not starting your own business unless you get a business coach, number one, and number two, start taking ADHD medication. And I was like, what makes you think first I didn't know I had ADHD because I was diagnosed in college, but, you kind of had a point that like, you can't be successful unless you are, working with your strengths and handling your weaknesses. And I understand. I mean, he loves me. He wasn't just saying like you're a disorganized mess. I'm not. I'm just like, I think when you have your own business, you have to be doubly on your game. And he was right. We both come from parents that are entrepreneurs. He's not, but we both live with two that were. So I did both of the things he asked. I started out graphic design, and then, as print people usually want a website, so I taught myself how to be a web designer. Social media came along, started using that. People would ask me how I was using it. I would start teaching them how to use that. Well, in that space, I started feeling like I was really missing something in my business. I kind of had wanted to do stand-up comedy in college, but I had kids really early, and a mom with two kids can't be hanging out in bars every night telling jokes. So I was kind of thinking like maybe a speaking career would be better. And I took like a comedy writing class, and I wanted to be a speaker, like a more of a corporate type speaker. And I didn't really have, I wanted to do the traveling, but you have to get gigs and stuff. And so I thought, what if someone asked me to be on their podcast. Sorry, I'm stuttering. Somebody asked me to be on their podcast, and it was right around this time, and I was just like, man, I wish I could start speaking. And it really felt like I was on like the Tonight Show. Like she was running her own like Tonight Show. She had segments. We'll be right back after these messages, like the whole thing. And so I was like, oh my God, I need my own podcast. And so for the next 2 weeks, like the whole rest of my life stopped, and I just like consumed everything podcast. I read every book, I took every class, I watched every video, and I was like, this has to happen. And so my podcast was Lady Business Radio. It was pretty popular in its heyday. At the time, there were no other shows that were interviewing other women in business. Mine was the only one. So, really, actually, it's funny. I was thinking about how I could get more exposure. And then I looked at like the other podcasts that were out there, since I liked being on Anastasia so much. And I noticed John's podcast, John Lee Dumas and Pat Flynn, and I noticed they're all only interviewing dudes. And I was like, well, these guys are never going to interview me. So then I was like, you know what? I'm going to have my own show. What am I thinking? I'll interview everyone else, and it'll be my show and my rules and I love being the boss of everything. So this is perfect. So once I started it, and it gave me the opportunity to ask people things I've always wanted to ask them. It gave me the opportunity to talk a little bit about my own expertise. Like when they would say, well, I just know from, doing websites that you can't do this without that, or I know from my branding expertise. And so I started getting clients. And then, once in a while I would interview a speaker or an author, and I was like, and I would say, I've always wanted to start speaking. I would even ask them, like, tell me how to start my speaking career. Or I would interview people that were speakers, and people would hear that and they would go, I'll ask her to speak. She'll probably do it for nothing because she's never done it before. And they were right. I did. So I started out speaking for nothing locally in Philadelphia, or like, pod camps and like all different like little things. I was just I was never talking about podcasting, always, like design, branding, marketing. And then, after a year or so, people started asking me, how can I do a podcast? And I'm not really an audio engineer. I put together my podcast the slap happiest way I could. And so I was just like, well, here's what you do. And then more people started asking. So I did a course about it. And, Lady Business Radio was pretty popular at the time. So I started selling advertising, because when I was in ad sales, I would put together packages of print and digital advertising. So I kind of did the same thing for my podcast. I was like, well, I'll talk about your ad, and then I'll also post about you on social media. And I just made up a number. I didn't know anything about how advertising was sold on podcasts, or if it was at the time. Like I didn't even know that was even a thing. And so again, people started asking me, how do you do that? And it's funny, like I keep changing my business I feel like I'm changing it based on demand, but also I get bored teaching the same stuff over and over. Like if I was still teaching people about like how to start a Facebook page, like I'd be in hell. So it's fine with me to start teaching people the stuff I'm doing, because it keeps my mind, I feel like it keeps my mind fresh. So anyway, I started teaching people how to get their own sponsors. And what would happen was they would go with their beautiful media kit and their pitch letter, and then the advertiser would be like, great, let's do this. But can you tell me what kind of results I can expect? I've never done podcast advertising before. And the host would be like, or some of them would be like, how do you calculate your pricing? they have no idea how to answer those questions. And they would come back to me and say, can you just pitch me? And I was like, no, I'm not doing sales ever again. That's never happening. No. But I also hated watching them bomb every time. It was making me sad. And so there was one client, Dr. Ginger Campbell of the Brain Science podcast. She's my parents' age. It takes her 40 hours to do one episode. She does one episode a month because she's a surgeon and a palliative care emergency worker. She's a brilliant mind and, you know, a lifesaver. And I was just, and she didn't have the time to do it. She didn't want to bother with it. She gave me, you know, she said she had gotten an inquiry from HelloFresh. And she was like, can you please just, you know, I know you know how to do this because we've been talking about it. Just can you take care of it for me? And I was like, all right, for you, Dr. Ginger, I'll call the guy and we'll talk about it. And it was like my brain came alive, wheeling and dealing, negotiating rates, talking about the value of her show. You're going to love her. Her audience loves her. It takes her this long to do a show. She's so committed. Her show is excellent. It was like I was born to gab about other people's podcasts. I'm like the Ari Gold of podcasting. All of a sudden, I was just like, let's hug it out. Ready? Great. And so ever since then, I was like, you know what, and actually Katie Kremitzos was one of the first people who asked me how to get sponsors. And she had been actually bothering me for 2 years to at least do a course about how to get sponsors. And I was like, oh God, it's all sales. I don't want to do it. But after that conversation for Ginger, I was like, you know what, maybe I should do it. Then I caught wind that another person in my Facebook group was going to do it. And I thought, oh, we should be partners. So I reached out to her to be my partner. And she was like, you know, I've had a business partnerships that didn't really work out. So I don't think I want to do that. And so I was mad. So I started my own agency kind of out of spite. Because I was like, oh, she doesn't want to partner with me. I'll show her who's going to succeed. I'll show her how, you know, how valuable I am. Because I thought she just didn't. I felt like the way she said no made me feel like she didn't recognize the value that I brought to the table. Because she kind of wanted me to like take care of like design and branding for the podcasters. And I was like, no. I'll show you how this works. So for all those reasons, I started my own agency and I've had it about 1.5 years. And the way the service works is podcasters tell me that they want help and I can either consult them to do it themselves, help them grow their show a little bit, or they can pay me for the service of representing them. They give me a list of who they want to partner with. I pitch them. And then, you know, I handle like all the negotiation and the invoicing. And then I help them run their campaign. And then we give them a report at the end and then we re-sign them. And my agency does all those services so that podcasters can focus on, you know, the thing they're good at, which is creating the content for their show or whatever subject their show is about. Because you figure if someone's like a pet detective, for example, why would they also know how to sell sponsorship? So it works in that way for podcasters. The industry is a little different though. Like people are a little hesitant about podcast advertising in the same way that they were when I started out in marketing. They were very hesitant about selling banner ads too, which is why I used to have to package it with print. Because they were like, wait, what's an impression? What's a banner? It's supposed to click somewhere? Wait, what? I got that a lot at first. So this is sort of an extension of, it's sort of like full circle even.
Yeah.
So teaching people about like new mediums and sort of like holding their hand as they try it for the first time and telling them what to expect. You know, sometimes when a pattern repeats in your life like that over and over, it seems like that's your purpose, right? Like, it seems like my purpose is to sort of push people into the next thing they want to do, either for their business or just whatever, because I seem to be good at jumping in with both feet and no reservations, seeing how it works. And then people notice that and they go, do you think I could do that? And I'm like, yes, everybody can do what I do because I'm a moron, right? So if I can do it, you can certainly do it because you're brilliant and I'm just a jackass with no fear. It's great. So... So, but you know, that's a repeating now, just even telling you this, however long I've been talking, I can see it's a repeating pattern. It's one of those things where like, if you're constantly thinking like, what's my purpose? Maybe your purpose is just to keep changing so that you can help other people catch up, you know, not you, but me. Maybe that's it. I don't know. Who knows? I'll stop now. I'll let you talk, Joe.
No problem. No, I mean you covered it pretty pretty darn well there.
Right now, you're thinking I have no other questions for her. This conversation's over.
No,
No more show.
no. I've been doing this long enough to know that my next question is, could you go into a little more detail as far as what were some of the first steps you took when you decided, like, okay, I'm going to start up a podcast sponsorship agency? Like, so like, okay, so you did the first, you did the first for the
first
doctor.
deal or whatever.
Yeah, the first deal for the doctor, but like, and after the spitefulness,
Yeah, that was just an extra boost, really.
Has that worked out? Has it worked out for the other person? Do you know?
She and I actually collaborate a lot. I adore her. Yeah, I mean, she's the only other person I feel like on the planet that knows what I'm going through. So we often have little Skypes where we're like, "Have you been doing this? How do you keep all your contacts together? Or how do you manage when someone's not paying? Or what do you do when a podcaster is too small? Like, do you have a template?" We collaborate a lot. We're very friendly, and she's super nice. And so, we kind of compared financial notes at the end of last year, and she had sold probably double what I had sold. But I was like, oh wow, you sold a lot. But also I don't think she does consulting the way a lot of my revenue was in the teaching of how to grow, because a lot of podcasters aren't ready to take advertisers. And so I did a lot of consulting work last year. And then also I had, a lot of personal stuff that was sort of, I don't want to say holding me back, but it was more of a distraction than I realized, because when I did my taxes, I billed the same amount in the first quarter as I did all last year.
Oh, wow. Well, that's
so
awesome.
That means things are going well. And I mean, I have not asked her, hey, but I mean, I did say, hey, I don't know about you, but I've done better this quarter than I did all last year. And she was like, yeah, I'm having similar numbers. So that probably also means that the industry is going well too, which is good.
Yeah.
So your question definitely was, what was the first step after deciding to do it?
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
The first step was to buy a book about advertising agencies, or at least, I bought like a Kindle book to see like what their business model was. Like, how does it work? How do they get paid?
Ad agencies for dummies?
No. It's like, I don't know where. I mean, the books are here somewhere. And I really just used them as kind of a dictionary. Like, I would look up invoicing, or I would look up account management, or I would look up business model, just to sort of see like how I should start thinking about what to offer, what should it look like. I started looking at, well, actually, I mean, I'm a branding person, so the first thing I do is make a logo and a website, right? I mean, that's the first thing you do.
Yep.
You make a logo and a website because it's not real unless you have a logo and a website. So I did that first. Then I bought the books.
It's got to be Facebook official too.
Yeah, and Twitter. Yep. So then, yeah, of course. And so then I was like, okay, now am I offering the right things? Do I need to get into this area? I knew I didn't want to do design anymore, but an ad agency technically could help with that stuff. But I really didn't want to do it anymore because it's very time consuming. And when you're supposed to be doing sales, you can't also spend 4 hours on a plugin that isn't working properly. It's just not a good use of my time. So I started, making a list of the things that I wanted to focus on. What are the things that I could potentially outsource eventually? What are the things that needed to happen in order for the business to be successful quickly? What did I want to start looking at long term? Like, I just kind of like brain dumped in an organized fashion. I brain dumped all of these things. Where would I get clients? How many could I take? Where would I get advertisers? I mean, it was like sludging through the mud. Like, my idea was, you give me a list of companies and I'll find their names. Like, you can just Google the CMO of Target. They don't want to be found. So I realized that, like, if I had 3 shows that I was representing and I spent a full week trying to find the names, and I was like, this is not going to work because I can't do all this research and still I'm not selling anything. All I'm doing is Googling and like looking up databases and email addresses. So then I looked on Upwork to see if there was somebody who specialized in lead lists, and there was. And so I hired someone to help me with the lead list so I could start calling these people and asking them what they thought about podcast advertising. And that way I was able to take on more podcasters. And then when I started to get my goal at the beginning was at first your client's going to be the podcaster because they're the ones that want the ads, but eventually what you really want is a list of advertisers that want spots, because podcasters are always going to want money, but the trick is going to be who's spending it. That's who you want as your client, not who needs it, right? But who has it. So I've always had that end goal in mind. But yeah, I mean, it took a lot of like mental before any project. Doesn't it take at least 2 weeks of you mulling over in your head, like what needs to be done? How do you do that? Googling it, thinking about it some more as you're like working out or driving in the car. So there's a lot of that before I actually sat down and was like, okay, I need to work on this. And that's when I sort of started organizing everything.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think when I get an idea, the first thing I do is I go and I Google it. Like I had an idea for a third self-development book, and you know what I did when I woke up out of a sleep because I envisioned it? I Googled it to see if anybody had thought of this idea that I came up with, and it didn't look like anybody did. And then
awesome.
So I put it together, a couple pages of it together, and I showed it to some people, and they were like, "I've never seen anything like this," and I'm like, great, that's great. I'm going to be able to accomplish what I wanted to do because no one apparently has done anything like this before.
Right.
So it's super pumped, gets you super pumped. And but yeah, I would say a lot of people that like in those positions don't want to be found.
Right. No, of course they don't. And some of them have gotten angry because I've emailed them and then followed up, and they're like, "Take me off your email list," or "Never email me again." Or how did you get my number? But like,
right,
which is fine. That's like not even 1% of people. Most people either politely say they haven't tried it or it's not for them, or they just ignore me. And actually at first that was the hardest part, is like, I can see that they're opening my email, but they're just ignoring me. And it was making me have hurt feelings. This is why I don't like sales, because it hurts my feelings. Not when people say no. I would rather be told no than be ignored or be considered a pest, because in this particular case I feel like I'm offering them something that they should try because it's better than what they're already doing, but you have to phrase that in a way that doesn't sound like what I just said.
Well, that's where the marketing end of it comes into play,
right? Well, that's
sure.
where I'm personality.
Yes, yeah, but no, I totally feel that. I don't particularly like sales either, because I don't like being, I don't like being told no in general, but being ignored makes me feel like I did something wrong.
Yes, it hurts.
Yeah, because it's like I'm not trying to do something wrong. Like but people don't. Yeah, well, I don't want to say all marketers ruin the world for everybody else, but in a certain degree,
heavy marketers have made it difficult for the rest of us who are sincere.
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely people that have just like spoiled it, driven it into the ground to the point where people are just like, mercy, I don't want any more. And it's totally understandable as a human being to not want any more of that type of marketing. But yeah, it does stink, because well, you know what it does is it pushes us to have to come up with other ways to figure it out.
It's funny that we're talking about this because there's a Facebook group online of podcasters who paid for a course of a famous person. I'm in that group. I don't know if you are.
I didn't pay for anything, so no.
Okay. Are you in the group though of a course of the person who has a lot of people making the same show as that person?
No. The person, if we're talking about the same person, it's the person who inspired this show. But I've only listened to one episode of said show ever.
But you're not part of the class or anything?
Oh, absolutely not. No.
Okay. So I bought the class for $100, before it was even began, just to be part of the group and see how it was going to go. And so I've been in it for a really long time. And so there's this so just to explain to your audience, there is a podcaster who's very famous who gives advice to other podcasters on how to be successful.
Is that Dave Jackson? I think that's Dave Jackson.
It's not Dave Jackson.
Oh!
Do that, but it's not Dave Jackson. I love Dave Jackson. But this person,
Dave Jackson too.
So my realm is sponsorship right now, and when people contact me and they're in part of this class, they say to me, like, oh, $18 CPM is so low, and like I feel like I could get much more. And I'm like, But I was told that's the industry standard. Is that true? And I'm like, no, it's not true. Industry standard is much higher, and that person has that because he works with an agency. So if you could, we can sell for hire, we can use your, there's a lot of other ways to look at it. So now the third person this week called me and said something about, I learned in this class and I want to know if it's true. And I'm like, it's not true. So then I post in the group and I said, listen, this isn't the industry standard. You should try and go for 25. You deserve it. And they'll pay it. That's all I wrote. 2 different guys jumped down my throat about how I'm trolling for clients and that's total bullshit. Setting unrealistic expectations. How dare you post clickbait? And I was like, listen. I already have a Facebook group twice this size of podcasters. I don't want you people as my client. I want you to take care of yourselves. That's why I'm posting this. But they're so used to that group being a bunch of needy, greedy Mussolinis that they immediately jumped down my throat. And I thought, they've just ruined it for everybody who's trying to be helped. All I was trying to do was say you deserve more money than what you're being told you can get. That's all I wanted. But all of a sudden, I'm like trolling for clients. Like
there's
why
a
would I
lack
do
of
that?
podcasters that want money from their shows.
And I was like, listen, and for one of the guys who was like, you're just trying to do this. I was like, listen, genius. The people I want are the advertisers. I'm not trolling in here for you. I don't want you. I want someone with has money, not someone that needs it. Come on. But I was just, but then the reason I bring this up is because it's exactly what you said. Like, how many people in there do the whole, like, can someone tell me whether or not my show sounds good? AKA, here's a link to my show. Yeah. Can someone tell me whether or not my mic is okay? Here's my iTunes link. They're very sneaky, and you're right. People are just like, I hate everyone in this group. You should all run away and die. And it's not fair because, first of all, I'm never in that group, so I just did it out of courtesy because of how many people are starting to contact me with the same question. So I guess honestly, it didn't really occur to me that an outsider or somebody who's in there all the time would be like, oh, look, another one.
I think there's something to be said for like, no, I'm not worth that much. No, we shouldn't try to collectively, raise the bar.
I didn't even mean that.
No, but not even you. I'm talking about them. Like at that point, that's such a self-limiting thought to be like, no, it can't be that way because the book of somebody that wrote it said otherwise, right? And it's like
had 100,000 downloads per episode since practically the beginning. So selling at 18 CPM probably is industry standard for a show that high. But when you have 5,000, you can sell it for $150 an episode. You can sell it for $30 or $50 if you have influence.
Right.
And there are certain podcasters
that
have massive influence. No. There are certain podcasters where all they have to do, John Lee Dumas is a perfect example. He could switch to I wrote this in here too. I was like, John Lee Dumas could switch to a shampoo that included sheep excrement and half this group would run out and try it because he just has enormous influence over his audience. Whereas like Dave Jackson, on the other hand, like people respect his opinion or whatever, but I don't think he is like meaning to or hoping for a group of people that like worship at the ground of Dave. Do you know what I'm saying? Like some people are just magnetic. I have another podcaster, Andrea Owen from Your Kick Life. Her whole show is about self-help, self-care, mental health, being your best self, being okay with your flaws, etc. She happens to be Barbie beautiful. And she has when she first did her headshots and her graphics for her website and her podcast, like she looks like a celebrity. She's not. She's just a lovely woman from North Carolina. She could totally be on any TV show, right? But the point is, she says that the number one question she gets asked is, what curling iron do you use? Now, why is that? Is it because it's because they want to be her? They don't care. I mean, yes, they care about her content, but she just has. If she says, "I drink Tropicana only," I could see them having a spike. She's just that kind of influencer, and I think John is that kind of influencer. Whether he had 10,000 or 1,000,000 downloads, whoever's listening to him is listening because they are into John. Period. That is worth more money than like a Mark Maron who's just there to entertain you and then not engage with you again. Right? Like Mark is just kind of like he's a comedian. I don't think comedians are looking to engage with their audience or start a conversation. Like he doesn't care. He wants to interview his friends and go drink a beer. So the influence is only great because the audience is great in number. It doesn't necessarily mean like people are obsessed with what Mark Maron is doing and want to be just like him. I don't think they want to be just like him, nor would he recommend that, I think. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, true. True.
So the point is, like, industry standard or no, if you have a show that's normal and not, getting crazy amounts of traffic, then you can stand to set your prices based on what your influence is in your community and your reach. Like if you're very influential, even though your audience is small, like She Podcast, Elsie and I are another example. If we told everyone to hate a podcast, they would hate it.
Well, please don't hate mine.
But you know what and I'm not trying to be arrogant. I'm saying when we have a sponsor and we tell people to like Christy Hauser is a perfect example. She can't even be our sponsor for longer than what a campaign would do because she runs out of like the ability to take work. She's so full. She's overflowing with work, and she said, I have to stop my ads because if I get one more client, I'm not going to be able to sleep at night. And that's not a bad thing. It just means that when Elsie and I say you can trust her, you can rely on her, you should hire her if you have this problem, they do it. And that is worth more than $18 per 1,000 downloads. It's worth like 50. Christy's never even asked how many downloads, ever.
Well, because, you're awesome, and so is Elsie, so it's enough.
We just say, we think this is worth the price, and like whatever it was, if it was 300, it would be worth it after one client. If it was 700, it would be worth it after 2 clients. If Christy already knows that when she runs an ad with me, she's going to get 5 new clients, then she knows that it's worth what we charge because it will pay off after a week, right? So it's like, so you as a podcaster, when you're talking to a potential advertiser, you can figure that out too. Like, if this person sells like $10 things and you only have like 500 listeners per week, maybe that's not the right advertiser because it's going to take them forever to recoup their money.
Yeah.
It's just, whereas for John, they'll recoup it within an hour of it going live, probably. So, so it just depends. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, I don't know why we got off this tangent. I don't even know if your listeners are interested in it, but.
Well, I think there's a lot of, hey, this is business lessons from those who have their dreams. And I think there's
I don't care.
Well, I think my point was that it's like,
know your value. Let's just get to that.
Yes. Okay. We'll leave it at that.
You should know your value. You should sell at your value. And if an expert says you are worth this or you're not worth this, if an expert says you need to sell your client, your coaching packages at $1,000 an hour, you better make sure that your client is going to get $1,000 worth of good advice. Because if they're not going to make it back by what you tell them, then knock it down to $250, and vice versa. If you know they're going to make $10,000 based on what you're saying, then you better charge $1,000. Right?
Yeah.
That's what I meant. So you can delete the other stuff about the CPM because nobody understands that anyway.
We don't edit this show.
Oh, you don't? Well, then
who's got time for that? Come on, Jess. Okay.
The listeners, I apologize for going off on a tangent that you did not care about. If that was the case for you,
well, that's okay. I think there's a lot to be taken away from there, other than the fact that we, yeah. Okay. Next question. How did your family take you taking on this new direction for a business?
The agency part, or just having
agency.
So Scott is a man driven by worry. He's just a naturally anxious type of dude. Which is why he's probably the only person in his family that is not an entrepreneur, because I don't think he could stomach it without Tums every night. Like, he just is an anxious person, for whatever reason. So that said, I have over the years, and really from the beginning, but proven over the years, that when I have an idea and it works, it pays off. So when I told him I was going to start this agency, this is after 10 years of him helping support my business and me telling him it's taking off and it's going to get better and whatever. Like, I keep promising him I'm going to be a millionaire any minute now. And
you are. That minute just might not be this minute, but.
Well, even if I'm not, that's not the important part. The important part is we'll always have enough money. I'll always make sure that we have enough money, even if it means I have to get a job, whatever. But I had this idea for the agency, and he thought it was a brilliant idea. And he was like, well, what's going to happen with this revenue stream? And I was like, well, that's going to go away. And then of course he's nervous, and I'm like, well, how are you going to make money until then? Well, I'll and we kind of talk it through, but I think he knows better than to squash my ideas, and B, if I can sell it to him, I feel like I can sell it to anybody, to be honest, because he's the most dubious character I know. He's very much like, that's suspicious, but he's also in love with me, so it's probably hard for him. So he's between a rock and a hard place, because he loves when, I know that he loves when I have new ideas, and I know that he, my enthusiasm counteracts with his curmudgeonly demeanor. And so he needs me to be like happy and excited about stuff. But at the same time, I think he worries that I'm not thinking it through, or that I'm not going to be thorough, or that I'm leaving something out. And like, I'm a Capricorn. I don't really do that. I'm not really like a whimsical business person. I'm just an enthusiastic and passionate business person, and that's different. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that I've proven up to this point that I'm a serious business person, even if I'm excited and have new things going on. So he was on board. He was on board, and that made me even more on board, because I feel like if he thinks it's a good idea, then definitely somebody else will. And then my kids, I mean, they don't, if they understood what I did in the first place, maybe it would have made a difference, but they never have ever been able to fully explain and verbalize what I do to anybody, either one of them.
And yet you make it work, and that's the important part at the end of the day.
Do you really need your kids buy-in? Don't you just tell them like your cereal's in the cupboard? I mean, because my daughter who passed away, she would have been 20. My son's 18. They're more interested in like whether or not there's enough food in the fridge for when they get hungry, and otherwise they kind of just don't want much to do with you, especially because you're always asking them to like clean something, clean up after themselves or help with the dishes. They kind of avoid you, so you'll get there. Don't worry. You'll get there.
I'm sure I will.
You'll get to a point where like your children will avoid you so that you don't hassle them, and that's where I am with the older ones. So like they don't care what I do. I mean, as long as their needs are met, and that's normal for teenagers, I think, anyway. So it's okay.
They got enough going on.
Yeah.
Enough on their plate. So your hobby is picking fruit from the orchard.
The orchard. Yeah. That's, oh my God. Yes, that is a weird hobby for someone like me, isn't it?
It is. It's
something you wouldn't imagine, isn't it?
But it's almost like the complete opposite of what I would expect from you. But it's interesting because it's such a quiet thing for you to be doing, and yeah, complete opposite.
So in your head, when you think of me, you think of a person who's like super extroverted, running their mouth pretty much all the time. Is that about right?
Yes, loud would probably fit in that bucket.
So I'm acting that way with you right now, and that is generally the way I interact with people. But when I'm not interacting with other people, I don't want to have anything to do with that, like at all. So and it's funny because my in-laws are, I think, all extroverts. Like my sister-in-law, my mother-in-law, like they can't live unless they're in someone's face talking, and I hate it. I hate it. It's a zoo here all the time. So to me, so you have to, and like, I may be this way. I'm not sure why. It's probably the need for attention, to be honest with you. Like, I like funny things. I like being funny. My brain moves fast, and like I like to talk fast. But I grew up in a small town in Maryland, Frederick, Maryland. My parents moved there from the suburb of DC to get away from their mothers because both of them were very like intrusive Jewish mothers, and they just, I don't know, like for one reason or another, probably the housing was like less expensive in Frederick, and like it was quieter. My dad was a teacher there, so we moved to Frederick, and it was extremely rural, which is a hard word to say at the time. My mom used to joke there were more stop signs than Jews in Frederick. One synagogue, you know, like, I mean, we didn't go there for the Jews, but the point is a lot of farmland, and my mom was an amazing cook. And so as a kid, we would get there was always Tupperware parties, right? So like you'd get a big Tupperware from the cupboard. My mom would put us both, my sister and I, in the back of the car. We would drive down a dirt road in the middle of nowhere until she came upon, like another dirt road. We'd turn down that dirt road, and there would be a bunch of people with their, and you get out of the car, you pay someone like $1 or whatever, and then you go and like you stand in the grass and pick strawberries. And I mean, it's so different now because here in Delaware, the orchard here, Linvilla Orchard, is like a whole to-do. They have like a corn maze and a whole like farmer's market, and it's like a whole thing. But the way I grew up, you just drove until I guess you saw a cow, made a left, and then started picking berries. But we did it a lot. I mean, we did it a lot because my mom would make jam. She made pies. She made cakes. She would give the jam away. She would make presents and stuff. Like, she was a homemaker. She didn't have a full-time job till she went back to school when I was 8, didn't have a full-time job till I was like a junior in high school. So, this was her thing. And we were little, we would go with her, and it was just really fun. It's nice now I enjoy it because it's nice to be in the sun. It's nice to have fruit that isn't like, have you ever seen a strawberry that wasn't put in a Driscoll's container in the grocery store? I mean, they're all perfectly with 1 point, but strawberries, some of them have like 3 points, 5 points. Some of them look like an ugly pair of lips. Like, to see an unperfect strawberry is like, it's like being born for the first time. You're just like, oh my God, fruit is imperfect. And it's like, but also it's so much more delicious. They pick out the ones that are aesthetically perfect, but some of the sweeter ones are small or dark or whatever. They're not perfect. So when you go to pick them right out of the earth, it's a totally different experience. They're warm from the sun. They're a little dirty. You take them home, you rinse them off, you put them in like a little colander and let people just eat at them. It's so nice. It's a completely different taste. So that's why I like doing it. I've always liked doing it ever since I was a kid. And like, even though I've always considered, when I was a kid growing up, I was like, I'm never going to live in the country. I'm a city girl, but I'm really not. I think that they beat it out of me over time because I like doing the orchard thing. I don't like hay rides, but like, I like driving to the grocery store and putting my groceries in the car and driving home. I don't want to take the subway with an armful of groceries, and I don't want to schlep a cart around the city. Like, that's not me. I don't like that. And I like quiet. I don't want to listen to accidents in police cars when I'm falling asleep. That scares me. It makes me unsettled. So I think like I said, they must have beat it out of me. So, so picking fruit, it's very cathartic. And I also think actually there's something very zen about just slicing fruit and vegetables just to have, like, not even making a salad or like making a fruit. There's something very cathartic about like coring and peeling a pineapple and cutting it up and putting it in a Tupperware. It's like very zen. I can't explain it. I guess I'm not explaining it, but
no, I think you are.
But yeah, I do not like conversation. Hence the whole hotel thing. Because I was like, Scott, he was like, well, maybe I'll come with you to the hotel. And I was like, that's fine, but here's what I want. I want quiet, and I want like darkness. And so he's been on like prednisone. He's like trying to stay healthy and not get sick. So like, he's very amped because of the medication. So I'm like, if you're going to talk to me the whole time, stay home. Like, I love you. And I love talking to him. It's my favorite thing. But when you want to recharge your head, you don't want somebody talking to you about the latest app they found or what thing they want. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm really not a person that is going a mile a minute all the time.
Well,
you're shocked
it's good
by
to know
this.
that it's good to know that you're still human.
Well, I mean, if we go to the zoo this weekend together, if we end up being able to meet up, you'll see. I interact with Isaac, but I don't do like I. Have you ever noticed when you're out with other people, when they're with their kids, they're doing a whole show for you inadvertently. Um, so
Yes.
yeah, so I'm the opposite of that. I sit with Isaac and I watch the show with him. Look at that person. She's got a blue thing, or look at that person, or that baby's sad. He's crying, or she's like we talk about like what we see. We're observing.
Yes.
I'm teaching him to observe and not display. And I don't even do it on purpose. It's just my way. Believe it or not, I'm more of an observer than a displayer. It's just that when I interact with other people, and especially on an interview, I'm displaying because if I didn't, this would be a boring show.
It would be.
It would be. So,
but it's never boring with you around, and
no.
Yet another thing that I love about you. And speaking of zoo, we actually Melissa said that we can. She said that it might rain though. But if it does rain and it's really like crappy out, maybe we can just plan to do something else.
I would love that. That would be awesome. Please, I have a
we have the time open, so
yeah, I have a membership to the Please Touch. So we could probably do that.
Oh, okay. Oh, we have memberships to the aquarium. So one or the other, yeah.
Yeah, either one.
Yeah, definitely. All right, yeah. So there's definitely other things that we could do if it's really that. I mean, it's like 40% chance rain, but yeah, whatever. Well, the time is ours. That's the important part.
To do what we need.
Yes. Jessica, what's been the biggest roadblock for you, and how have you overcome it?
Joe, I think I'm still overcoming it. I forget, how much older am I than you? Like 10 years?
I'm 30, so probably about 10 years.
About 10 years. So my daughter just passed away from accidental heroin overdose. She was an addict for about 2 years. Before that, she had mental illness. Before that, I was a single mom. And before that, I was married to her father, which is a gentleman that I appreciate now, but probably wasn't ever really in love with because we were just very different. And I got pregnant with her my senior year of college. And then her brother 8 months after I had her. So I had 2 kids before I was like 23. And then I got divorced at 25. Then I was a single mom. Then I met Scott a couple of years later, and I got married at 29, remarried at 29. And then my mother died a year later. And then I started my own business shortly after that. And I've been hustling ever since, because when you don't have a steady job, you have to hustle. And I'm now at a point where I feel like, I don't even know if this is an obstacle, I'm not going to lie, but like, because I feel like many of the choices, like here's my life right now. I'll just paint a picture. Okay. I have a 2-year-old. I have an 18-year-old. I have a house with 4 bedrooms. I have a car payment in a city I never wanted to live in, and a man with a job. And I met, and part of the appeal was that we would live in Delaware because he has such a big family here. But we don't like interact with them so much, right? So I'm now in a position at 42 where I'm like, which part of my life am I in control of exactly? Is it the part where I had a kid before I was ready, or is it the part where I had a kid later than I wanted because we weren't ready, because he wasn't ready? Like now I have a 2-year-old, I'm 42, and I really would have liked to have a 7-year-old now, not a 2-year-old, but he wasn't ready, or we didn't have the money, or just whatever. I have a huge house that I expected to be full of 3 children, and one of them is gone, and the other one lives with his dad because the school system here in Delaware is just ridiculous compared to where you live. Your Jersey schools are amazing, and he went from
grass is always greener.
Listen, he went from practically failing to the honor roll. He used to have a 504, he doesn't now, and he's graduating, and that's 2 years of being in Jersey. That's a big difference. I'm telling you, don't knock it. Delaware schools are terrible. So I live in a house with a tiny little boy and a huge house. And like, I've never really been able to travel because I've always had, I've had children my entire adult life. I don't know. I just kind of feel like a lot of where I am right now has not been in my control. I'm 42, but it's like, have I ever been asked, where do you want to live? Do you want a pet? Would you like a baby? Like Scott was an amazing stepfather. So I always from the beginning was like, yes, of course I'll have a kid with you. But by the time I got to like 38, I was like, when is this happening? I married you 11 years ago. Like, what's up? So, I mean, so I think right now the biggest obstacle for me in fulfilling my dreams is part of me feels like I don't know what my dreams are because I've never been able to think about it. And the other part of me is like, well, what if I think about it and it doesn't match what I'm doing? Then what am I supposed to do? I don't want to get a divorce. I'm not leaving my child. I don't necessarily want to move, but how can I make my life? First of all, how can I figure out what my dream is? And second of all, how can I fulfill it if it doesn't quite, how can I make it squish into this box I'm already standing in? Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Some people are so lucky they get to plan everything when they have kids and what they do in business and plan each job so that this job complements the next job so that they can finally get that apartment in New York City or San Diego or Barcelona. Like, I've never had that luxury, and as a result, my biggest fear is I'm either not reaching my full potential because I can't think about what it is, or I'll never know what it is because I'm too busy dealing with the situation I'm in. Like, how are you supposed to know? I can't think about whether or not I'd want to live on my own in an apartment in France because I can't think about life without my baby and my husband. But then I also know, well, they're not going to be French. That's my dream. Right? I want to live at the beach. I would love to go get a house by the beach and just live in the ocean, whether it's here or, in California or it's just somewhere by the beach. But like, I so far Isaac is, not, he doesn't mind the sand, but I don't know if he'd want to be living in it all the time. And I know Scott hates it. So that's my dream. How do I have my dream and still have it complement what I'm doing?
Well, it sounds like a beach house would be a good start that you don't have to live in, but you could live in maybe part of the year.
Yeah, it would be helpful. For sure.
Or not necessarily a beach house that's like, millions of dollars or whatever, but a house that is much closer to the beach. Because, like, where you live is not close to, like, any beach, if I'm not mistaken. Because, like,
hour and a half from Delaware Beach. That's the closest one.
So, like, I live, like, an hour from Ocean City, New Jersey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not hard. I mean, like, a lot of people who live here have beach houses.
No, it's not. Yeah. But, like, you could totally live closer where you're not on top of the beach, but you could go and, like, work on the beach because it's only, like, a 5-minute drive or a walk, a long walk or longer walk rather than just having a house. Because it'd also be cheaper, too.
The other thing is I don't live near any extended family of my own. I don't live near my father. I don't live near my sister, my aunts and uncles. Like, I'm living near his family who we don't really connect with much. So, like, all of a sudden that's important where it never was before. Like, I was when I had my first 2 kids, I was still in the stage of like, I don't want to be near my parents because I was like 21. But now that I'm 42, I was like, I kind of miss my family. And I don't know what, and doing something about that just means making the effort to go there for holidays. And it's 2 hours and,
Wow. Yeah, it's a commitment each way.
So
4 hours is
so it's confusing. So these things infiltrate my mind and it's confusing. That coupled with, and so when you start to, so once you question, like, what is it I really want out of life? Then all of a sudden that is the roadblock. So when you ask me, like, what's the biggest roadblock for you to achieve your dreams? Right now, that roadblock is trying to figure out if I know what they are is the roadblock. Because if I doubt that, once you doubt that you don't know what your dream is, everything you're doing all of a sudden is in question. Should I be having this business? Should I be living in, should I, do I want short hair? Do I want long hair? Do I want, it's confusing. So, and I think that I'm in that position right now because I suffered a loss. And I think once I get past that a little further, maybe it'll become more clear.
I tend to think it will. I think it's, you weren't asking the other questions that are in my mind that I'm thinking that
What?
might be in your mind.
What are they?
Well, relating more towards your daughter.
Oh, well, actually, I was just going to say something about that, which is like, now that she's gone, one of the dreams I'd love to achieve is to make mental health care, preventative mental health care, more of a priority. Because I feel like had I had more knowledge of that, had that been more of a common practice, I possibly could have prevented her from even, becoming as mentally sick as she was. So, as a result, I kind of want to do a podcast about my experience with that. She's been having some kind of therapy on and off since she was like, 4. And why am I the one that diagnosed her? For the love of all that is holy. Why me? Because I'm her mother? Or is it because I'm the one that bothered to figure out what the hell was going on with her and why she was so oddly crazy? Different crazy, not bipolar, not depressed, not just anxious, different. It's different. Why is it different? It plagued me. Why wasn't it plaguing their doctors? Or better yet, like, why didn't I know what the difference was and bring it up to the doctor myself? Why did I have to Google for 5-10 years? Why didn't I know what a symptom was of bipolar? I mean, people say bipolar and they just think you're out of your mind. Can you rattle off the symptoms of that? I can't. All I know is bat crazy. That's what's in my head. That's it. How do you know when you're depressed? Are you depressed? I mean, am I depressed because I am sad? Am I clinically depressed if I can't get out of bed? That's what you say. People who are depressed just sit around in their bathroom looking sad with a gray face, right? That's in my head. Is that right? Is it when you stop feeling joy at picking berries? Is that when I'm clinically, like, how would I know? And I am telling you this, Joe, because I don't know the answers, but I feel like people should. After all my Googling and researching to help Emily, I still don't know. I only know about her thing. I only know about borderline. And who cares now? It's too late. I've only known about it for a year and a half. Big deal. I should have known what that was a long time ago. You know? You should know what it is. Your wife should know what it is. We should know. We know what fat people look like. We know what a heart attack looks like. I can sure as hell tell you if someone's having an asthma attack. I know what all that looks like. I could probably tell you if someone has jaundice, right? Or the gout. Or, I've certainly can picture in my head because I've Googled it enough times, right? Or venereal disease or whatever, right? We know what physical things look like. But mental stuff is all a mystery because we don't think about it. We don't worry about it until it's too late. And I think, I don't know if she would want that or not, but all I know is like, it sure would be nice if her death could mean that other people and other families don't have to go through it. That would be cool. Is that a dream? I even hesitate to call it like a dream.
Why? Why?
I don't know. It would feel good. I don't know. Because it seems like dreams are the kinds of things like, I've always dreamed of having my own, album label, or I've always dreamed of having my own talk show. I've always dreamed of an apartment in the city. Like, most people don't have the dream. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a shallow jerk, but like I feel like
I
dreams
think you also think other people are just shallow jerks.
Well, that too, but I always feel like people like fulfilling their dreams. Either that or I feel like when I think of the term fulfilling your dreams, I feel like people dedicate their whole life to the one thing. Like, if you're a doctor fulfilling your dreams, then like you're in Africa, solving world hunger, right? Like, it's not a dream to just tap people on the knee and give them an aspirin. That doesn't feel like so to me, it's like, is my podcast worthy of like being called a dream? If it helps people, yeah, I guess so.
Well,
I guess so.
when you say doctor, I hope you mean like doctor of farming or something.
I don't know.
Doctor of hydroponics or something like that. For trying to solve world hunger issues. I don't know that my general physician would be much good at solving world hunger, but I mean, maybe if he dedicated his time to it. I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to do something that opens people's eyes and having a dream like that at all. I think that you aren't necessarily giving people enough credit. And then thinking that they're cynical and shallow when it comes to just the dreams that can be fulfilled. I mean, look at all the nonprofits that exist because of people that had a dream, that to help other people in some way, shape, or form that didn't necessarily align with make product A, sell product, the final product, which is product B, and then, or like piece B, and then make profit and get Ferrari. What
if I never had a dream? So I have a friend, I know a girl in 4th grade. She was obsessed with horses. She knew at age 9 she was going to grow up and be a horse veterinarian. I mean, all she ever talked about was horses. She practically smelled like a horse. And then I find her on Facebook 25 years later, and sure enough, she's like a prize-winning veterinarian and horse racer. And she always knew, and I could sit here and tell you, okay, when I was a kid, I wanted to have an ad agency like Darren Stevens, or I wanted to be a rock star like Gem and the Holograms, or I wanted to, I never dreamed about being a wife or a mom. I always dreamed about, you can even consider this dreams. There were a couple years there where I just wanted to go to University of Maryland because I thought the turtle was cool, or I wanted to be, I thought I was funny, so I wanted to be a writer, but I didn't really know what I would write. I just kind of wrote in my journal. There was a little while there where I was like, maybe I could be a stand-up comedian. Then I started writing comedy. I realized how hard it was, and I was like, fuck that. So I don't know that I've had a dream my whole life that isn't fulfilled, or maybe is it possible that people don't know how to do that?
Well, if only there was a book called How to Dream Big and Win. I mean,
Is there?
There is a book called How to Dream Big and Win.
Of course I know there is.
I know that you know.
So, Joe, hearing what I'm saying, can you tell me, is there a part of the dreaming big part that I'm missing here? Is it because, are people not dreaming big generally because they don't think they can do it? Or is it possible that I've just, literally never stopped to think my entire life, what do I want to do and be and feel and see when I grow up?
I hope you're not just softballing all this, too.
Totally not. I literally forgot that you had a book because I'm not that good of a friend. So.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay.
I'm not softballing it to you at all.
I mean, now
that I know you've written a book, that was a bit of a softball. But I would like to know, why do people not go the whole enchilada? You think?
Well, let's break down your dream, because the next question I generally ask is, what is your childhood dream? And you've just told me that you wanted to be a rock star, you wanted to be a writer, and what was the other thing that you said?
Ad agency.
So let's see, you have an ad agency now. You're a writer in the sense of writing copy, and while it's not writing, podcasting is a form of communication, right? Yeah. And then a rock star, you've been a rock star to me since I even knew who you were. So yeah, and in that sense of having a platform in which you're, basically your stage, you definitely are achieving those dreams. I mean, we don't always know what it is that we wanted to be. So I don't know if you know this, but when I was 6 years old, I cried because I wanted to be a child psychologist, to help other kids going through divorce like I was. I'm on my grandparents' floor crying about this. And the reason I was crying about it is because, the family business, and I'm the only boy, and I had it in my head that I'm supposed to do this. Yeah. And my grandparents took me aside and said, no, you could go sweep streets if you want, as long as you're, do it to the best of your ability. We're going to be proud of you. And that had a profound effect on me. Now, I still did that path of wanting to do that, but the reason I didn't go into child psychology is because I also didn't care for school much, and 10 years of schooling did not sound great. A few years later, about 4 years later, I found DJing and wanted to be a DJ. So DJing opened me up when, I didn't get to be a DJ till I was 17. So that opened me up to a whole new world of getting out of my shell and stop being such an introvert and in performing. So you combine that with then I'm giving talks to kids and writing books to inspire kids. And now I work at a nonprofit helping youth in Camden get on a path for education and for, you know, a professional job career. Like, everything that I wanted to do as a kid has come true. It just didn't come in the form of like, I'm going to sit there and listen to what, and let's be real, this podcast, I've been told countless times on the show and after the show that people feel like they've had a therapy session after the fact. So no, I don't have the education, but you know what? I have the experience
do kind of feel that way,
and the platform.
You know, it's funny because you just said that about kids, and I just remembered that in high school I always wanted to be an English teacher because I thought my English teachers were so cool, and like I just felt like I was learning so much about life from them.
Mm-hmm.
And no, I don't teach English, but I do teach a lot. So you're right. I mean, they did kind of happen, but I don't know. I don't think that I see that your path led you to this so clearly because at age 6 you were like, but what about my dreams? And the fact that they may not come true or that you may not have had a choice was frightening to you. Whereas like my dreams were always at the palm of my fingertips. I just had to pick, you know, like no one told me as a kid I couldn't do anything. That, I mean, a Jewish mother is going to tell you that you can be the president of the United States if you want. Doesn't matter how stupid or ugly you are, right? So like, and I always joke about in fact, Elsie and I my co-host always joke about this because she's Catholic, and she's a Hispanic Catholic. So like her family is always just like, you're talking too much. You're drawing attention to yourself. And my mom calls me at age 30 and goes, why weren't you on American Idol, right? Like, it's just so different. It's so different. So no one ever, you know, my father always said, like, I always saw you as like a Katie Couric type. My father saw me as Katie Couric, Joe. So like, I don't think it ever occurred to me that I wouldn't be able to achieve my dreams until I had kids very early. And then I was just taking care of that. Whatever dream I had, which I was probably squandering anyway, was, you know, put aside. And so the concept of dream and dreaming just hasn't been. I knew this would be an interesting interview, actually, when you asked me, because when you said you have to come on the Dreamers podcast, and I was like, I maybe even said something to you like, well, I don't know what I'll say, but sure.
I think you did say that, actually, and I was like, yeah,
you're
what
probably like, what
about?
the hell does that mean, right? But does it make sense now that you know that I've had a kid since I was in my stomach since I was 21, and that dreaming kind of was like, I was really have been just trying to make my life okay. Forget dreaming. I just want it to be livable. I don't want to live in an apartment with water bugs. I don't want to live with a guy who only watches horror movies, you know, and eats fried chicken with his bare hands. I don't want, like, you know, I just was trying to get rid of the stuff I don't want. And sometimes you're so busy doing that, you don't think about the stuff that you do want. You just want your day to be like okay for you. So I've never gone past that. Now that I am telling you this, I do feel like I'm in therapy a little bit, because now it feels like it's almost scary. Like, well, what if you could make it what you want? It's like, well, all right. It just seems so boundless.
Well, we need to deal with the cards that we have, right? Like, we can't just be like, okay, everybody, I'm out. Like, well, you could, but I would highly recommend against that.
Would it surprise you to know that I've always kind of wanted, you know, I've always seen those pictures of like celebrities in Africa feeding people and like holding kids before they get shot. I've kind of always wanted to do that.
There's nothing wrong with that.
I
don't not believe it. I believe that.
I want to wear a white linen shirt and have a long ponytail and a khaki pair of shorts, and I want to go to Africa and ride an elephant with small underprivileged children, and then I want to, you know, like help them get health care and maybe teach them some games like Foursquare and dodgeball, and then I want to go to sleep in a hut, you know, with a mosquito net. I don't know why. I've always wanted to do it.
Well, I mean, life isn't over yet, and maybe if you know, to me, right now, what would be most important to me at if I was in your shoes at the age of 40 would be how am I going to get to 55, 60 and still be healthy so I can go do those things.
Ooh,
because like you have a 2-year-old, so like realistically, unless your husband's willing to like put up and say, okay, go do that for 2 months or a month or whatever, which might be the case, but I'm gonna guess that that's probably not gonna be the case. That's okay. Your goal really needs to be, how do I keep my health between now and 60 so I can go do those things.
Actually, another dream would be to lose 100 pounds somehow.
Bam, there you go. We're just dream on top of dream on top of dream. I think just a rap song.
Maybe you
like
just
that.
bring it out in people.
Oh, well, thank you. It is, inspiring people to be their best is it's something I've wanted to do since I was little. So
how you do?
It's how I do. Yes.
How you do?
Yeah. So I think that it's one of those things where it's like you need to really sit back and take an inventory of like everything that you have, everything that you want to have, and what it's going to take, because it could take a little while too for you to find the right vehicle to get to Africa. Obviously not real vehicle, but like the right retreat or the right I don't know, opportunity for you that fits, that you could go and do something like that. And at 60, that's not old. You should be at least have 20 more years before old.
Why do I gotta be 60? Why can't I be like 50? It's 7 years from now. Is that too long?
Well,
you mean because I'll be retired?
No, because your son will only be 9. So unless you're willing to leave or take your son with you, I mean, there's plenty of opportunity to do stuff like that. It's just a matter of how much you're willing to compromise to get there, right? Because we have to make some kind of sacrifice. So
wait, he'll be 9. He'll be on his own by then.
Well, yes, as long as your husband's willing to take care of him while you're gone, unless he's going to come with you, in which case I guess he's going to go live with someone else.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that realistic of a dream. You're right.
It's not unrealistic, but your sacrifice at that point would be like, okay, we're going to uproot everyone and go live in Africa for like a year.
I have another dream. You know what? I'm just going to keep it rolling.
All right, go ahead.
I have another dream where the agency becomes like the house breadwinner, and Scott and I somehow work together. And like, he's a project manager and developer, and I handle like the business stuff. And then I can hire my sister and let her work from San Diego and pay her a ton of money to do nothing. You know what I mean? Like, I would love to be able to have a family business the way my dad used to hire all my friends to come work for him in the summers. And like, I had to go work there in the summer. He had his own business, and like my mom was the accountant, and like I kind of would love to have that as a business too. And oddly, he had a similar business where he found a technology and was like, and found a way to make it work for him. And he had a very lucrative business for a really long time. He used to recycle videotape and sell it back to networks and colleges and places who were doing a lot of video that didn't need, it to be brand spanking new. It was a recycling business. And
wow.
also dealt in media, and like, but now it's known, at least among people who are 42, it's now known as my first job, because he would hire my teenage friends to come over and peel the labels off the tapes for like $5 an hour. Every one of my friends has worked for him in some capacity, and like I would love that. I would love to be able to like hire my kids' friends as like interns and teach them about social media and podcasting, and you know what I mean? Like, it would be great. But unlike my dad, who had a brick and mortar, I don't have, things are different now. I work all on the computer, and it's just different. But that's a dream I think I could fulfill as well, where he could quit his job and then we could go anywhere we wanted. Like, we could all go to Africa because it would be business by laptop,
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I think that's very realistic. I think that, we could have some conversations about how we could help you get there.
Oh, I'd have to make like $1 million. He has a very high paying job in technology at Comcast. So you can imagine that for him to leave both the salary and the stock options, I'm going to have to like hand him $1 million basically and be like, here you go. Here's your salary. Let's do this.
Well, is he younger than you?
No, he's 46.
Oh, so he's older than you.
4 years older. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then that puts even closer to being possible.
Why? Because when he retires?
Because he could be, maybe he retires early.
Oh yeah, that's his goal. Yeah. Oh, you're right. You're right.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. It's like if he was 25 or 27, I'd say, or my age, I'd say, okay, you're gonna have to make a lot of more money to make that happen. But it's not impossible. That's what I'm saying. I think we could have a conversation. Maybe we'll talk on
All right,
Sunday.
let's do it. Yeah.
About how we could help you get there.
Maybe Sunday I'll look at the
I
zoo
do
animals
consulting
and
work,
then
right?
change my mind. Yes, I was just going to ask. I wonder if you do some consult, but then I'd really just be obviously softballing you because I do know you do consulting work.
Yes,
I do. Yes, I did know that actually. But it's funny. Maybe when we get to the zoo and I smell the zoo, I'll change my mind about Africa. But we'll see.
Well, hey, I have some friends that you could talk to that has spent quite a bit of time over in Africa.
Get out, really?
Yeah, seriously, yeah. One was there for quite a while. I think like a month. Up and down all over Africa. My friends Shane and Laurie, for their honeymoon, they actually like traveled basically around the world. In fact, remember when was it Taiwan had the coup? Like,
yes.
Yeah, so they were on the next flight, like from China to go there, and their flight got canceled. Fortunately, wow. Yeah. So fortunately, they didn't go there because that would have not been good. At the time. So yeah, so I can definitely connect you with some people. And I have somebody that was on a mission there for a while. I could reach out and see if she'd be willing to talk to you about it, or what it's like, because she lived in a house with a lot of like several other people in Africa, and yeah, it seemed to me like, in my opinion, or my perception, was a life-changing experience for her.
That's what I assume.
Yeah. I mean, you're living in a house with like dirt floors and like no windows. I mean, windows, yes, but like no like screens or anything.
It's oddly appealing to me because there's too much during our day that distracts me from the simple life I had as a kid of just living in a house, going inside, fireworks, and I mean, not fireworks, but I meant like in my head, I'm seeing myself. It stood out because in my head, what I was seeing was sparklers on the 4th of July, holding the sparklers on the 4th of July.
What type of fireworks? Block
parties in the middle of the road where you just set up a picnic table in the middle of the damn road and everyone brings like a dish. Like, I feel like Africa is a better alternative to like Bed Bath & Beyond, which isn't feeding my soul, right? Like your suburban life is Bed Bath, Sesame Street, and you know what I mean, and casseroles, and it's not feeding my soul. And I don't want my life to just be, the minutia of suburbia. I want it to be, helping people eat and read and live better without the distraction of this other crap.
I have some entrepreneur friends that live in Nigeria as well, so I might be able to hook them up with
what are you doing? You got a Rolodex?
I do. That's what podcasting does. It creates a worldwide Rolodex for you.
It's true.
You should know that. Come on now. You're really softballing a bit.
No, I do know. Of course, I know that. You're right. But just like, it's like every time you open your mouth, I'm like, and then I have a friend in Nigeria. And by the way, there's a guy in Thailand. It's like all of a sudden you're like, I know 1,000 people in Africa.
Well, I know 3 people in Africa. 3 people. So, that's not the whole continent, but
But still, it's more than me.
True. True.
Great.
Yeah, no, it is. It's really awesome. So real quick, I just want to remind everyone that I'm Joe Pardo, and you're listening to the Dreamers Podcast, and this interview is with Jessica Kupferman, who owns JK Media, right? Because I'm the good friend.
Yes.
Yes. I'm sorry, what was it again?
JK Media Agency.
JK Media Agency. And we've been talking about, we've gone from podcasting to really deep diving into Jessica's dreams, and now I really want to talk about what does we've talked a lot about what the future could look like, but what does the future look like right now for you? Like, what are your future dreams?
Right now, my future dream is to go to a hotel room and order room service.
Oh, sweet.
And then maybe have a bath with no toys in it. Beautiful. So the future for me, I see that my agency is growing. I see a lot of potential there. I feel like I can see myself shrinking weight-wise, although I'm not always doing a lot to help that. I feel it in my bones that it's almost like like bears get ready to hibernate. Like I feel like my body's doing that, but the opposite. It's like I can feel a physical gearing up to shed, if that even makes sense. Like I can feel myself getting more energy, and like maybe it's the weather, spring fever, like kind of makes you want to do more stuff. But I can feel a focus on health coming into reality, and maybe having some free time once my agency gets a little more underway and I can hire and outsource a little bit more to go to the beach for the summer. I see Scott getting better. He's been chronically ill for a couple years, and he starts treatments in a couple weeks. So by the summertime and hopefully the fall, he'll be able to stop being the bubble boy and leave the house and not get sick. And then as far as, and I also see in my future, hopefully a really meaningful podcast that is both entertaining and also, informative about mental health and taking care of oneself and one's mental state. I think I am starting to realize how little I know about it and how important it is. And I should definitely start with my own mental health, but as usual, I don't know where to begin. So therapy. So I signed up to do therapy, and I'm doing my first appointment next week. And the thing with therapy is not that I don't believe in it or that I don't think it's effective. The problem is that as a person who is naturally funny and on stage, I tend to want to entertain my therapist and not get therapy. So they ask me a question, I answer them in a way that I think is funny, they laugh, and now all of a sudden I'm entertaining them and not being counseled, if that makes sense.
Well,
everything I say, I want them to laugh.
Let's just reflect what's happened here in the last 2 hours of our conversation. Mm-hmm. Do you feel that way about this?
Yes and no. No.
You don't have to just be nice. It's okay. I know.
What do you mean? Like, what's your?
Well, you say no. Well, I'm asking if you feel like all of those feelings towards therapy, if you felt that way about all the stuff that we've been talking about, for yourself.
I feel, I can tell that my mannerisms are different than an hour ago when we started the show. That I know that my energy has come down, that I've become more serious, that I'm less like cracking jokes and like being funny Jessica. So in that way, that's why I said no, because at this point in the conversation, no, I don't feel like I'm just trying to entertain you. I'm gaining from this conversation as much as I'm giving to it, which I don't always expect from podcast interviews. So that's a good thing. So do I still feel the need to entertain your audience? Sure, but not in a way where I have to overdo it at this point. At this point, I'm just having the conversation with you because it's fascinating and not because you've asked me to be interviewed. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Whereas when I'm looking at someone face to face, the what's the word? The risk is that I'm trying to get a reaction. I'm looking for nonverbal cues that they are amused by me. Which is not terrible, but and I'll get past it. But
clearly you have. It took 2 hours into the conversation. But
we're also not on video though. So I mean, I wonder if that's part of it too. I don't know. I don't know. You know what? It'll be an interesting experiment because I do therapy. Like I go one time and I'm like, I'm healed. So we'll see. I know that's not going to work this time. So, so I'm going to try and stick it out. And then also I was meditating. I do some of that. There's physical exercise that I've been getting into that I really like. That's been helping. And I don't know, mindfulness. I don't know. Mindfulness is a weird thing. I'm a very mindful person. Let's just put it that way. I'm aware of myself. I'm aware of my surroundings. I'm aware of other people. Like I said, I'm an observer. So I'm very much observing what's happening at all time. And to me, that's my way of being mindful, is just like noticing, like, look, this person is talking because they're uncomfortable because this person's here. Or look, this person feels defensive because as a kid, it's like I'm always analyzing people myself. So to me, that's like mindfulness a little bit. Don't you think? Kind of? I don't know.
Yes, I think that it sounds like to me like you should make your therapy sessions for 2 hours instead of 1.
I should really make any call with you.
At least 2 to 3 hours.
There's no way that I'm ever going to book 60 minutes with you ever again, because in the history of our phone calls, it has never, ever been 60 minutes. Never.
You're absolutely correct.
Are you like this with everyone or just me?
A few people, but no,
yeah,
mostly you.
Yeah, mostly you.
Yeah.
We just have that effect on each other. It's funny.
Yes, I'm so glad that I didn't have anything else booked after this.
Same with me. I mean, I didn't know we were going to catch up for so long and then talk about this stuff. But I mean, yeah, it's I mean, it's the Dreamers podcast. I really, because I don't listen to podcasts as much as I.
Me neither. I don't listen to like any podcast.
I don't listen to any podcast. So to me, again, because in my head, dreamers are like, visionaries. I really assumed you were going to ask me a lot of stuff like, what's your dream? Have you achieved your dream? How are you living the dream now? And like, it would all be answers. But like the fact that you're a very good interviewer in the sense that you don't cut in where I expect you to cut in. You let me keep going, and that's why I think the conversation turns so interestingly. You should be teaching the art of the interview, to be honest.
Whoa.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm just telling you, that's a good quality in an interviewer, to let the other person talk themselves into a corner and then you comment. It's brilliant. But so yeah. So
well,
I don't even remember what your last question was. Was it? What
it was
the
about
hell?
Your dreams for the future, and you.
Oh, the future. So yeah, I see a lot of things. I see a lot of things looking up. The last 2 to 5 years have been really hard, but I have to say that every single thing happens for a reason. And this little boy Isaac he's not just like, I mean, everyone says like, oh, your kid is so full of joy. They're so joyful. And that's true. Children are joyful, but I've had 3 now. And this is by far the most delightful child. And in the sense that he's like a little bit OCD controlling about his stuff, but generally he is cool beans. So like, as long as he has his shark in one hand and a car in the other, whatever's clever. He doesn't care if he's eating. He doesn't care if he's sleeping. He doesn't care if he misses a nap. He doesn't care if we're in the car. He doesn't care if we're in the grocery. He's perfectly pleased to be doing and being everywhere. So that makes it very easy. And actually, if I tell him, nope, we're getting out of the car, we're going to the grocery, it's whatever's clever. My other son, it was never whatever's clever. He's never whatever's clever. Nate always had something to say about getting in the car, getting out of the car, in the bath, out of the bath, in the chair, out of the chair. Like, Nate always was giving me an earful of nonsense, whereas Isaac is always like, okay, Mom, let's do it. Let's go. Great. Sure. Whatever. His favorite word is sure. And you gotta love that, right? Like, you gotta love that. But just that he's also a kid that's like, because he's so enthusiastic about everything, the smallest things, and he also has a really good sense of humor. Like, he knows when you're messing with him, kind of, and he doesn't take himself too seriously. That like, he is like, he makes the future brighter in the sense that I can already tell that like, just when he's in the room, people are different. Sad people are different. Angry people are different. He can pick it out in someone and go, hi. Like strangers who are obviously irritated or busy. They look at his face and they're just like, hey, buddy. And it's like he changes them somehow. He's like magical kind of. So, he's here at the exact right time, doing the exact right thing in our family. And we're the exact right people to, teach him to be his best self and take care of his dreams. So it's good. I can tell it's good. Do you know what I mean?
Well, it sounds to me like he came at the right time in your life. I know that you were at first you were disappointed that like you waited till so long to have.
Oh, I was going to be disappointed. I'm a very old parent and I don't like it. I'm always going to feel like, why am I so old? And I have such a young kid. That's just never going to go away because I feel old. You're 30. You have a kid. You know what it's like. Imagine being 10 years older. It's terrible.
Wow.
They're exhausting. You know.
It is. Yeah, it is exhausting. I won't take that away from you. In fact,
okay. Now call me in 10 years and say, I don't know.
Around here right now.
Joe Pardo, in 10 years, you're going to call me up and you're like, woman, I can't believe you did this at 42. Wow, I feel old. Even if your kid's 10, you'll be like, this is oldness. And it's not like everything's falling apart. You're just tired. You don't have time for stuff. You don't have time for shit. You know, like every time I want to get in the car, I'm like, come on, Isaac. He stops and looks at the flower. Isaac, get in the car. Then I come after him. He starts running away. And I just look at him like, I'm too old for this. I don't want to chase you, boy. Get in the car. He thinks it's hilarious. But it's every time. At 20, I would have just run after him. At 30, I would have just run after him. Now I'm just like, I'm going to stand here or I'm going to drive away. Your choice. I'm not running because I'm old.
Well,
it's just different. My trick with him is if he wants to play games, I just go buy, and I will literally leave him. And he knows it too. He's like, wait, and I'm like, that's what I thought you said. Let's go. The other two, I would chase them all everywhere. I was like full of it. You know what I mean? You're full of energy, but yeah. So I mean, when he's around, things are just naturally wonderful. He brings out the naturally wonderful in other people. And what more could you ask for?
Well, I look forward to meeting him on Sunday.
Yeah. Oh my God, you're going to love him. He loves everything. And he's going to love Ava.
Ava's probably going to love him. Ava loves other kids. And in fact, like we go to the aquarium and she doesn't care about the fish. She turns to the people standing next to us and is like, hey.
He's the same way. His teacher calls him the mayor.
Looking forward to it. Well, Jessica, before we wrap up, can you let people know how they can connect with you online?
Mm-hmm. Sorry, hold on. Oh, yes, right. You don't edit.
I don't edit, so I'm not holding on to anything.
Oh, awkward. Yes, if you'd like to connect with me, I am Jessica Kupferman on Twitter. I am Jessica Kupferman on Facebook. I am Jessica Kupferman on Instagram. My agency website is jkmagency.com. I also have a podcast for women podcasters, but really anybody can listen. We didn't always just talk about podcasting. It's shepodcasts.com. And I have a website, jessicakupferman.com, but really it's just like my resume and stuff. It's like the most boring thing ever. If you really need to get in touch, you'll figure it out. How about that?
Yes. Well, it seems to be that way, but I will have all of those at dreamerspodcast.com for people to check out and connect with you. And I hope that they choose to, because I mean, I don't talk to everybody for 2+ hours, ever anymore. Well, anymore because time is so constrained, but I'm so happy that I'm able to do so here with you. And I'm really, really looking forward to seeing you on Sunday, regardless if we get to go to the zoo or just whatever we wind up doing. I don't even care. Whatever we wind up doing.
You don't live that far from me. We can just go to lunch at a diner or something near you. I don't care.
Lots of diners to do so.
I know it, brother.
Yeah, we could. We could. Isaac likes watching movies. We could totally watch a Disney movie or something in the theater room.
Sure. Yeah. Have you taken your daughter to a Disney movie yet?
Do you take 13-month-olds to movies?
I have not taken Isaac yet, and I don't remember how old Emily and Nathan were. I'll have to ask Nate or his dad, because I don't remember how when I first took them to the movies. But I'm a little fearful of taking Isaac because even taking a picture of him, he's always moving, so I'm kind of afraid.
Right. No, I totally hear that.
We watched it at home, though. His favorite's he calls it Monster Sync.
Oh, Monster Sync. Yes, we should watch the Monster Sync.
Monster Sync. So you can come here. Whatever. We'll figure it out.
Yeah. We'll see what the weather's like. Anyway.
Yeah. All right.
Is there
thank
any
you guys so much for
thoughts?
If you've listened to all this time, I just want to say thank you, because that means that I didn't bore you and that maybe you're learning something, and so I appreciate that. I just want to say thank you for your time to your audience.
Well, I've
you,
learned
of course.
Something. You're very welcome. Is there any last thoughts you'd like to share before we wrap up?
Try and have a baby before you're 35. That's what I'd like to share. No, I'm just kidding.
Might be hard for me as a male.
I don't mean you, but you know. Too old is too old. If you think it and feel it, it's true. No, I think my final thought is for the audience that, I think that if you haven't figured out what your dream is yet, it doesn't mean it's not buried in there somewhere. And probably softballing you again, Joe, you should call Joe and he'll just like pull it right on out of you.
Yes, you could call me, or you could get my book.
I didn't even know that was going to happen today, but honestly, it was effective.
Well,
I really never thought about what my dreams were, and like I don't pay attention to them, but I have to say that it doesn't mean they're not. I'm relieved to know that there are some in there, and that I'm not broken. So thanks.
Oh, you're very welcome. And it seems to have come at a very good time, right before you go and relax.
Fulfill my dream of a good night's sleep, which I haven't had all week. So yes, it is good timing.
Oh, well, I'm happy to help and happy to be a part of helping get you get some stuff out of your mind before you go and relax it.
Thanks, brother.
You're very welcome. Anytime, Jessica. And if you've enjoyed this episode of Dreamers Podcast with Jessica Kupferman, not only can you get the show notes at dreamerspodcast.com, but I would be absolutely ecstatic to find out that you, the listener, shared this episode or just the show in general with a friend. That's the only thing I ask of my listeners. That if you're enjoying it and you obviously you've made it this far, an hour and 30 some minutes into it.
It's not going to kill you. Just do it.
Share it with somebody else and really, it could change somebody's life. In a big way. It might not happen overnight, but it definitely could open somebody's eyes to something that they've wanted to do. And maybe they'll take that trip to Africa and fulfill that dream. And maybe it'll end up being the way they expect, or maybe it won't. You don't know until you find out. So thank you again, Jessica, for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you asking me. It means a lot.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Dreamers Podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Dreamers Podcast. Join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Dreamers Podcast. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest on the Dreamers Podcast, please send an email to j@jpar.co. This podcast is copyright 2014 by jpar.co.